Michael Chammas with a big yarn in the Sydney Morning Herald. Why Joey Manu could be on the verge of an NRL return. Joey Manu is considering asking for a release from his French rugby contract. So you may recall he went to Japan, but this is saying from his French rugby contract on compassionate grounds to return home. Manu, who is currently playing Japanese rugby for Toyota Verblitz, has signed a deal with French rugby club Racing 92. Now he's 28 at the moment, considering his future, and was weighing up a return to either Sydney or New Zealand due to family reasons. If he does request and secure a release from his French deal, it would be likely he'd be available for the 2026 season, so not this year. However, in the event that he leaves French rugby before June 30, then the door would be open for him to become a free agent and return to the NRL this year. Complicating Denan Kemp, the situation at Racing 92, which is the French club, is the fact that Manu signed the deal when Stuart Lancaster was the coach. Lancaster had since left the club. Do you see Joey Manu back in the National Rugby League this year?
Well, it's an interesting. I guess that's probably making things happen quicker.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he has to be passed before that deadline. I do find it interesting, like, how do you go and sign someone, like a relatively big signing?
Yep.
He wouldn't have gone there on peanuts and then sack a coach a few weeks later. Like, it's a bit bizarre. Like, surely you're holding off on signings that the coach wants if you're going to be moving that coach on within a few weeks' time. In regards to Joey Manu coming back early, well, I mean, the obvious answer would be back to the Roosters. However, coming back to the Roosters, you'd have to assume if they're going to allow him to come back to the Roosters. First of all, I'd assume the salary cap auditors would have to look at that because they released him. Now he's coming back halfway through the season, if that was available. And granted, we don't have any confirmation whether the Roosters are interested or not. But if he was to come back to the Roosters, then he would have to probably stay at the Roosters, because I can't see the Roosters going, oh, yeah, you can come back to us for half a year, but then you can go and sign with someone else. And so Tedesco, he's going around again next year. Does Joey really want to come back to the Roosters and play in the centres again? I don't think so. I think he probably wants to get a bit more ball. I actually think the Warriors are lining up in the box seat to get Manu, because I just heard a story only a week ago that Chance Nickel-Klukstad is most likely going to take an offer up in the Super League. And Tamate Martin also potentially moving on. And all of a sudden, that fullback position opens up. Now, people say maybe Tuapiki could come in and be the next fullback after Chance. But, I mean, if you're going to go for a Golden Boot winner or a rookie that can play on the wing and can wait a couple of years, I think you go with Joey Manu. So I reckon he might end up at the Warriors, mate.
Okay, all right. And the fact that the clue is in this article, Michael Chammas, Sydney Morning Herald, says that he'd be looking to come back to Sydney or New Zealand due to family reasons. So the or New Zealand part is very interesting, which may align with what you're saying. I just want to share this with you, Dan, and I have shared this with our audience before, but I just find this ridiculous. I understand that players get paid from November 1, right? Mm-hmm. That's when the contract period starts and they wrap up 31st of October. That's fine. But this June 30 deadline, so if you were to sign on the 30th of June, so say you're a $900,000 player. So Joey Manu could be that example. A $900,000 player. Come the 30th of June, the 30th of June, then you have got a player who contract-wise, this is not competition-wise, contract-wise, we are 2/3 down the track. So therefore, you can sign on 30th of June, and anyone at the NRL, if I'm wrong, please correct me. On the 30th of June, you can sign a player who's a $900,000 player, i.e. Joey Manu, if that's a fair example, for $300,000. So if you've got $300,000 sitting in the cap, then you can sign a $900,000 player, which I think this is where it's wrong and it's broken. If you start the year with $300,000 in your cap, that should also prorata down. So, for example, if you've got $300,000 in your cap round one, you should only have a third of that left, which is $100,000 come then. Anyway, I hope you know where I'm going to, but I just think it's ridiculous that June 30, salary cap, you can spend $300 to get a $900,000 player.
But you're still disadvantaging yourself. Like, let's say you've planned it so you go, you know what, we can get a $900K player up at $300K, but you still don't get his services, which you would be exchanging for that $600K in the first half of the year.
Yes.
So for example, like you go, okay, it's an unfair advantage that he gets to be purchased at 300K even though he's worth 900K for the whole year. However, the disadvantage they get is that they only had 29 people in their roster to work with for that first three-quarters of the
I get
two-thirds.
I get that. But the problem is that they're using – you don't need that extra player in the off-season. So they're using November, December, January, February. There's 4 months that's chewing into that player's things. Like, no one's disadvantaged having a player less for those 4 months. June 30 is really 4/7, so more than half of the competition. But it doesn't work that way, and I think it's ridiculous.
Do you think the added weight of it being a risk that they may not even sign with you?
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, you don't get the November, December, January, February. Like, that doesn't count towards the contract. But it's a huge risk to be going, but we're going to keep this 300K aside, a player less for the season. If they end up signing with us, you might miss out on them. They could sign with someone else.
We're going to go to the news because Amy Drew's banging on the door saying, come on, we've got to do the news.
Apologies.
But Tavita Pangai Jr., I don't think the Panthers, and he didn't play in the grand final, so it doesn't matter, but I don't think he should have been able to go to the Panthers that late because of that loophole in the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, this article coming through. The full package, I saw him last night, the full package, Michael Carianis, he's a great fellow, looking good too, Mick, for the Daily Telegraph. He says Maroon star AJ Brimson is on the verge of switching allegiance to England. It's understood that Brimson wants to play for England this year. It would mean he would have to give up the Queensland jersey that he's worn 4 times while he's yet to play for the Kangaroos. Brimson is eligible to play for England because his mum, Vanessa, was born there. He'd ordinarily be free to switch from Australia to England, having not represented the Kangaroos. However, Brimson was part of the Australia's World Cup 9 successful squad in 2019. So this has implications for Kalyn Ponga, as he was part of the same squad, and it means the pair are not automatically able to switch their international allegiance after Ponga had been linked with a switch of allegiances. So it's all up in the air.
Isn't it 2 years, though? Wasn't it something like there's a time that between representing and then you could switch across if you wanted to?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so and it's been quite a long. It's been at least 4 years since that Nines tournament.
Well, 2019, so nearly 5.
Longer, yeah.
Nearly 5.
I mean, whether, good or bad, whether AJ Brimson does decide to play for England, I think it just continues to scream, we have to sort this eligibility now.
Yes.
It's something that I know, Vlandis came out and said, we've already got it sorted. It's like, well, hang on a sec. Let's say I'm a player that has heritage in New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa, but I can also play for Queensland, New South Wales. Out of all those countries, who's the most disadvantaged to get that?
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yes.
So how's it fair on New Zealand that blokes that can play for the Kiwis, go, all right, well, I'll just play for Tonga because I can still play Origin.
Correct.
And yet Tonga and Samoa beat New Zealand.
Yes.
And so I understand Tier 1 and Tier 2, it comes from the development and the money and the resources from the island, but let's get real here. Let's get real. It's a tier, how's that fair? So New Zealand, because they've got more resources, when players like Katoa come through and they're eligible for New Zealand, they're supposed to go, no worries about it, even though you probably may have picked us.
Yep.
But because we can't play Origin, I just think they need to sort it soon because it's just becoming more and more evident that we have a multicultural demographic that plays rugby league now.
Yep.
I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. This is the one area where I'm happy to say I'm sitting on the fence because I listen to Billy Slater talk and he gets me across the line and I go, mate, you're right. I agree with you. Then I listen to a passionate player that is Samoan heritage, but plays in. I watch Josh Papali'i in Origin and go, do you think Josh Papali'i cares less about that jersey?
Yep.
No, he's an Origin legend.
Of course.
And yet he plays for Samoa. And so I don't know what the answer is.
But you can, Denan, and we won't spend too much time on this because we have already, but you can grow up in Sydney, you can grow up in Brisbane, you can grow up in Innisfail, whatever the case may be, and love your state. But you also have a strong tie to New Zealand, to Samoa, to Tonga. I have no problem whatsoever for Ronaldo Militalo as a great example.
Yep.
Ronaldo Militalo, who grew up in Queensland or parts of, play for Queensland, love Queensland, and then go play for New Zealand. I don't have a problem with that. A lot of people do, and it's a topic that we're not going to solve today because so many people are torn on this particular item. Just as we go to the break, folks, Josh Schuster. This has been reported on the Wild Ball of Sports website. Josh Schuster to make his South Sydney debut in New South Wales Cup. So he's had that trouble with the calf injury. He's ready to go. And when he gets a few games under his belt, there will be no stopping him, says his agent, Mario Tartek. He told that to Wild World of Sports. He has trimmed down, lost some weight, and is primed to play footy again. Well, based on what we've seen with Latrell and others, I would imagine that to be true.
What, you're still here? Well, you can see more on the Joel and Fletch socials and catch us live on SEN Radio, you beautiful humans.